This is Chris Oatley's ArtCast, episode 78, The Making of Project Arbiter, an independent sci-fi short film with a big budget look. An interview with director Michael Chance and composer Ryan Leach. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Chris Oatley's ArtCast, the show that goes inside the hearts and minds of successful professional artists. I'm Chris Oatley. I was a visual development artist at Disney before I quit to start my own online art school, the Oatley Academy of Concept Art and Illustration. Find more art instruction and career advice from some of the most inspiring voices in animation, games, comics, and new media at chrisoatley.com. That's ChrisOatley.com. For many visual storytellers, technology means equality. Equal tools, equal teams, equal attention. A creative meritocracy where the internet decides to reward only the best and most beloved work. Of course, the mythical future I'm describing isn't significantly different from our present reality. Ideas like webcomics, podcasts, Patreon, and Spotify have been erected from the rubble of the traditional publishing and music industries. Mobile and indie games have erupted into the mainstream, claiming a huge share of the existing market and expanding it even further. Movies are different. Not safe, but different. Independent film and mainstream movies have coexisted since the early 20th century. Mainstream movies have thrived because the indies never really got in their way. Most independent filmmakers embrace limitations and leave the spectacle to the studios. Today, mainstream movies survive on spectacle, almost exclusively. They are being destabilized by a global competition for attention, not by independent film specifically. Not yet, anyway. In this interview, director Michael Chance and composer Ryan Leach take us behind the scenes of Project Arbiter, an indie sci-fi short film with a big budget look and sound. What will happen when technology offers Hollywood spectacle to aspiring independent filmmakers everywhere? Project Arbiter is proof that we'll all find out very, very soon. Before you listen to this interview with Mike and Ryan, I recommend going to chrisoatley.com/project-arbiter. That's ARBITER. Again, chrisoatley.com/project-arbiter. There you can watch the 22-minute short film and see what these guys have achieved on basically no budget. It's visually stunning, it sounds amazing, and most important of all, it will inspire you with possibilities you may never have imagined. Mike, you directed your first feature film at age 19. That's insanity.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, Chris. It was basically, just as a quick little background on me kind of leading up to that film. You know, I come from a long line of artists. My dad would do oil painting, and my brother would also draw and do graphic designs. My grandpa would do these amazing sketches, and I would draw as well. And then, you know, getting into high school, my freshman year, my mom asked me, she's like, hey, do you want to try this multimedia career pathway? I was like, all right, I'll give this a try. So we started doing some interactive stuff like web design, and I'd loved working on the computer using my dad's account of like CorelDRAW. Figuring that out on my own, you know, before the days of YouTube. So I basically would just get in there for hours and click around and make things. You know, my dad would say, you know, it looks awesome, but I knew it was bad. My freshman year of high school, after all that, I took this career pathway, and that same year, I was doing PE wrestling, and this guy fell on me while we were wrestling, and because apparently, you know, you're supposed to wear proper shoes, but you know, it's public school, so they don't have the proper shoes for you in PE. So this guy falls on me, and he easily is, you know, 30 to 40 pounds heavier, and I, you know, like I'm not trained, so I put my arm down on the mat, and it pops the other way and fractures my elbow and dislocates it, and so. Short story about, you know, a month later with 2 pins and 16 stitches, I emerged, you know, someone who can't play sports anymore in high school. It was kind of a blessing in disguise, because instead of, you know, playing on the football team anymore in high school, I actually started filming the games. I got so good at it, I made a whole documentary about the team my senior year, and they only won 2 games, but I made them look like champions.
Wow.
All throughout high school, I would take, you know, 1, even 2 classes with my elective, and into my senior year, even like 2 classes as a teacher's aide, just editing. And back then we didn't even have edit systems. There was this little black box called Screenplay. And, you know, you'd throw your clips together. It's nonlinear editing system. And that's where I was kind of a self-taught editor for 4 years. And, you know, growing up, I used Legos, and I would make my own contraptions and all those little blocks, kind of putting them together. It helped me a lot with structure. I think that's where a lot of my spontaneity comes from in storytelling, where I can kind of pick out ideas and very quickly put them together on a modest budget. So The Narrow Road stemmed out of just a desire out of high school, going into a junior college, De Anza, which is in Cupertino, California. And it's an amazing JC for film. I mean, it's probably one of the best in the state. And I learned so much from the dean there, Zach Elisha, Dennis Irwin, Susan Tavernetti, and just studying film. And I really got a leg up there. And I had this choice. Do I go on and basically go to a 4-year, or do I do my own things? And that kind of led to Arbiter. But for the most part, for The Narrow Road, that was just a film that, you know, I was working at a post house called Shepherd Video Productions in Los Gatos, California, and wonderful man, Mark Shepherd, kind of took me under his wing, and I was an editor there for 4 years, and then moved into agency life at Design Reactor. Basically there, you know, over the course of about 3 years, I made this film, The Narrow Road, which is about a 50-minute family drama about this guy who gets in a car accident, and then you see everything that leads up to it and his decisions, and he gets to watch it almost kind of like It's a Wonderful Life kind of way. So that one, growing up, you know, it played a little bit more on the melodrama side, and it was a little, you know, I definitely learned a lot, and it was something that humbled me, because creating something like that, I didn't necessarily get a lot of like schooling in script. And I would say for anybody, you know, out there who is an independent filmmaker and wants to get better at filmmaking, anybody can learn the applications. I mean, anybody growing up, they've got an iPhone. Oh, yeah. It's second nature now. So learning After Effects, it's a week of your time. But script writing and finding your inner voice and what you want to say and what you connect with, and being honest with yourself, and then putting it out there in front of an audience, you got to test that. And it's kind of the biggest thing. So with The Narrow Road, I got people who loved it and hated it. It was my first kind of foray into public opinion about what I created. And it was 50 minutes, and it was 3 years of my life. So, you know, I remember one moment when I showed the assembly cut of it to about a group of, I think it was about 15 people in Mark Shepherd's office. I had to step out because I had this anxiety attack. Because I started watching, I was just like, I don't know, this is not working for me. But then going through the process of refining the edit, receiving feedback from trusted people, I was able to basically cut it down a bit from about an hour in about 15 minutes to about a really nice 50-minute piece. So it plays as a long short to me. It doesn't necessarily feel like a feature. We got that distributed on Netflix. Yeah, I started when I was 19. I finished when I was about 22. You know, you learn from everything you make. And, you know, as an artist, Chris, I mean, I would imagine your first picture... Actually, your first picture was probably a Picasso, right?
It was, well, yeah, I think there was some of that, but I got very representational very quickly. I came up, my earliest memories of drawing are this very formulaic, I could even reproduce it right now. I remember it so well. This very formulaic reproduction of a likeness of Kermit the Frog, involving a very simple series of triangles. And
nice.
Yeah, it was, and I drew it the same way over and over and over again.
So you even had like you had a very specific aesthetic even as a child then.
A method. Yep.
I just turned 30 this past May. Just now, I'm kind of creating what I consider more of my professional work.
Right.
Everything up to this point, you know, I kind of consider as basically like finding my voice, finding what really interests me, and really taking more time to actually like be still and actually think, all right, what really moves me when I'm watching a film? And what do I want? What questions do I want audiences to, ask? And those more meaningful questions, I think, are things that come from experience. So when, you start off and you're a kid, all you can do is emulate from, my opinion. And I think you emulate all the greats that you watch. And for me growing up, the first film that really, touched me inside was E.T. Yeah, I always remember like that point in the river and he's just dying. It always gets me. I'm like, why? And then bringing it back and he's alive again with Elliot at the end. And it's a perfect little journey. And then I realized, learning more about the filmmaker behind it, for anyone, I forgot his name. What is his name? Well, you guys, you can look it up. Yeah, maybe IMDb. They probably have it there. But I grew up a lot on war films, just from all the stories my grandpa and my dad would tell me about his father. And a lot of what I consider grade A, B movies. Like John Carpenter stuff is like the pinnacle of just on the cusp of an A film, but it's still B. And I would say, most people would consider those cult classics.
Right.
I call them ABs. So basically, They Live, Big Trouble, Little China, Tremors.
Oh, man.
And just those quirky, more on the science fiction supernatural bend is where I kind of land. So I never let that stuff go. And I actually made a conscious decision growing up that, I didn't want to lose that kind of childhood aspect of me where I stop reaching back to the things I like, and I just keep trying to look to the future of, this is more mature and gritty and stuff.
I was thinking about that this week, actually, in the wake of the Breaking Bad finale. But I was thinking about how that show is so entertaining, and yet it's about everything. It's about all the important stuff. It conjures up these very metaphysical questions. Well,
I think what you're hitting on there, which is a very powerful tool, and a lot of contemporary films actually skip over it. And to me, it's the power of choice. And it's in Breaking Bad, you have those moments where, since it's a slow burn, you've just got this suspense that keeps building. And then you actually get to see it resonate on that actor's face. And then you see what direction they choose. And for good or bad, you actually get to see that conscious decision on their face, and actually them going through that process of making that decision. A lot of films, especially, in the early 2000s, like they adopted this quicker, style of editing. And you lost that tempo. You lost the No Country for Old Men type of aesthetic where you get to actually just live in an actual frame and hear the sounds and be with the character while he decides.
Breaking Bad, it's never... There are guilty pleasures all throughout the entire series, and yet it's talking about really important stuff. It's just a great blend.
Yeah, Vince Gilligan, he's kind of a master, especially in this television medium.
Yeah.
Plenty of information out there now about, how he didn't know what he was going to do after episode 2. But but what's just interesting to understand is how he built that arc. It's one of those things where it's like you can watch it by yourself or with friends, and no matter what, you're still going to come out having this amazing, profound experience. So
I agree.
Transcended a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, it's very, very worth your time, listeners, if you haven't watched it. Well, so talk to us a little bit about how Project Arbiter emerged?
For the most part, in my early 20s, to me, in my mind, like I think about certain things, and I think about my process and my aesthetic a lot, what things I really want to convey in a film, and also how it actually feels and it looks, and all those things coming together to create one kind of essence. And in my early 20s, like with Narrow Road, cop drama I did that was black and white 16 millimeter called The Reason, and some other shorts, and then getting into producing with friends, I just realized that I was making films that I thought other people wanted to see. And I think, again, like emulating and having a tendency to create something where you're like, oh, this is a powerful story, and I know I'm going to attract an audience with this. And, to me, those are somewhat kind of more selfish desires to actually climb the ladder, like you're saying. And there's moments in my life where this might sound a little weird, but there's moments in my life where I'll go into the bathroom or in my room, and I'll just have a gut check, and I'll stare in the mirror.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, okay, Mike, where are you actually at year 25 in your life? And it's sometimes it's a scary freaking thing. Yeah. But at the same time, I feel like it humbles me to understand, like, stop for a moment, don't go through the daily rituals, and think about what inspires you and what you want to say with your short amount of time on Earth.
Yep.
And don't be a sheep, actually be a shepherd in a way.
And I've been doing that a lot lately. And part of it has been basically going into business, but for myself, because now I have so much control, or at least the illusion of control over my own life. And even down to, just like we were talking about before the show, where we live, and very few people are making any decisions for me, and it's not like just going to a job where, at the studio at Disney or whatever, where the whole thing is a machine and it's running on its own, and I just show up and do my part and go home. But
there's a kind of like a thrill to it, and also an anxiety that you have to overcome, which is, all right, here's all these options out here on the horizon. Right. Which one am I going to walk towards? It's going to take a lot of time, and if I try to course correct, it's going to take much longer. Yeah. But you gotta just find what looks beautiful out there to you, and just go after it
and stick with it. And someone told me today, I wrote a friend of mine for some advice, and actually, I'll bring up the email here real quick, and I'll just read to you what he said. It's just it's right on point with what you're saying. I was talking to him about how I want my academy to remain small and personal and in this intimate experience. And he said, the beauty of choosing to be weird is that it's your choice to make. Sure, the weird thing to do would be to choose to stay small, to choose personal interactions, actual relationships, and your own lifestyle over, and he's making quotes, success, the way that everyone else seems to see it. But you get to be weird if you want to. The ironic piece is that by making that choice, you'll actually become even more attractive in the marketplace, making sticking with what you believe is right even harder to do. That's why it's important to make these decisions now while you still can.
Yeah, and I think it's important to identify that, because you actually have a conscious choice of, to me, it always comes down to, is the idea, does it fall into quantity over quality? Yeah. And there's a lot of filler stuff out there, and it's, filmmaking, because I come also from like a digital design background, basically producing commercials and websites and things like that up in the Bay Area, before I moved down here to LA and Studio City. There's basically a kind of a push to market and sell a product, and that's fine. That's fine. We live in an age of basically commerce, where a lot of jobs rely on people selling goods. And it's, to me, that the business side of it is not a problem. It's not a problem if you have a tentpole movie, people enjoy it, and it's something that actually has some substance. And even like Breaking Bad, it's something that has tangible substance, and it asks tough questions, but it still doesn't treat the audience as, children. Now, when you have other types of films that come out and they try to portray that they're this deep, mental thing, and it's like, no, you're just, again, you're like Skittles. You taste good, but you're just so bad for me. Like, I'm not a kid anymore. I shouldn't eat that stuff. It's going to rot my teeth. And it does the same thing with your heart and your mind if you keep going towards that. Yeah. So to me, when I started thinking about what's my next project, I looked back to The Narrow Road and even The Reason, and I realized, like, the thing I really liked on those projects is I never released them until they were done in my hands. I could take, basically I took it as far as I could. So it was the highest quality I could. So with Project Arbiter, I kind of set out and I started dating this beautiful girl named Tracy Hayes. And, she's been my girlfriend of 6 years. And I think a lot of my inspiration comes from her and my family to just pick more of the honest things. So I started asking myself, all right, I got to reach within and find my next story. And we were antique shopping down San Carlos Boulevard in San Jose. And basically, I love looking at old things. To me, I'm much more of a kind of a retro guy, and any kind of futuristic stuff, I always look to the past, and even sci-fi geeky stuff that's kind of cutting edge. But I still always look towards what's kind of fun and nostalgic for me. So I found this old gas mask that was from these coal miners from like the 1930s. And it really struck me like someone going into this dark place and having to wear a contraption to stay alive to do their occupation. I'm like, there's a story here, but it's not what's at the surface. So then I consciously asked myself a couple nights later, just listening to some music, that coupled with what would make something interesting that kind of represents me. And I started thinking about, I've never seen a soldier in the past kind of wear a suit like that. And so I started thinking about it. I thought about all the war stories my dad would tell me about his father, Walter Chance. He was a B-24 bomber pilot, and he flew basically 50 missions in World War II. And you only have to fly 24 to do your service in your tour. And he did 50, and then he was shot down, and he was in a POW camp, and then he got rescued by Patton. But I know there's a whole story there I want to do, but I thought I don't want to do that just yet. I know my expertise is not there just yet. My voice isn't there yet. So I want to do something that's a little bit more fun, more of like an Indiana Jones throwback, but still a bit darker, because I've always kind of gravitated towards, things that are just a bit more on the macabre or dark side. So I basically thought, it just hit me one day out of the blue. I was like, all right, a guy in World War II, and he has a suit that basically embodies like a Grim Reaper. He's basically this assassin with this skull face. And there's practical reasons why it looks that way, but of course it's a selfish desire to make him look awesome. But
it does look awesome. It does look so awesome. Yeah.
And that's to Robert Simons, who you guys will hear from in a bit, but he's an amazing artist. But basically the Arbiter came about with me just saying, all right, this coal miner mask fused with, this kind of conspiracy theories from, my grandparents' stories, and this desire to make kind of a sprawling epic in the vein of The Rocketeer, but still have that feel and camaraderie and ask the tougher questions of a Band of Brothers. So to me, that's like, Rocketeer, Band of Brothers, put those two together.
Sold.
It's a movie I want to watch.
I'm there.
And, to me, a lot of the films that I think, going back to that one by, that famous guy who made E.T.
Yeah,
I'll have to look it up. But basically, those types of films, and even Close Encounters, which is one of my favorites, which doesn't even really have an antagonist in a way.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a huge fan of that movie. I can talk about that for hours.
It puts a stake in the ground, and it says, this is not just a film. This is also my film. And it embodies everything I love about filmmaking, stories, everything. And that's what always excites me, is when you figure out your aesthetic, which I feel like I'm getting there in Arbiter.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I'll ever be finished. You're always learning new skills, new techniques. There's always new technology, like these crazy spider helicopter cams that you can put cameras on, and just your imagination can run wild. So I think that's why I always look to my childhood to say what really affected me growing up. And I just take that and infuse it with kind of my more adult nature of, all right, what really affects my emotions? And that's kind of where I got Arbiter. So yeah, it was quite a few things coming together finally.
So Mike, this is very inspiring, but how do you get to the point where you are hiring people to make it? You know what I mean? How did that turn into, no, really, we're really going to make it? You know what I mean?
I feel with any project, if you're doing it right, you're always kind of picking something that is a little bit further than, what you've done on the last one. And there's always something out there that's still to be obtained. To me, there's so many things on this, just looking back on it. I mean, the level of visual effects that Jesse Boots and our team had to do was, we'll get to that, but that's basically what took us to a large amount of time in post, from prosthetics to actual pyrotechnics, different effects actually in the scene, different crazy light gags and things, and also doing a good, majority of the film actually in German too, with another language, and not doing that before. There's just things I always wanted to do, and kind of putting them all together, you just have to say, all right, this is what we're after. And the main thing is it's a quality experience. It doesn't matter if we don't have the budget. It doesn't matter, that we don't, have the facilities or things to do that. It'll all come together. And that's always my approaches, yep. Which I should also say it's not by luck. It's also by design. Again, like I said before, growing up with like Legos and even nonlinear editing, I'm always kind of like the next block. And so in order to build that pyramid, you have to have a really solid foundation. And so to me, seeing and improving this thing out came first with talking to a good friend of mine who also worked at Design Reactor, Jason Beckwith, who is my cinematographer on it. And working with him and my girlfriend, Tracy Hayes, who's the production designer, the three of us initially just said, all right, well, can we even do this? And then I brought Robert Simons on. Craziest story ever. I basically went on to DeviantArt one night, again, just kind of praying and saying, all right, I need to find an amazing artist to design the suit. And so I went on there, looked up Suit of Armor, found his stuff, contacted him. And it's basically the only time I've used an online dating service to find someone.
That's awesome.
And so to me, there's just all these little moments where things just kind of came together. And it was always, I kind of think, by design, because we made sure we built it up from the ground up. So long story short, got Robert on board. He designed the suit. I gave him a very quick brief, gave him some more contextual things like a Harley Davidson V-twin motor for like the backpack and some things like that. And he used those as design references. And then he basically created the entire look and feel of the suit. And from there, we contacted Blue Realm Studios. After a lengthy trial to try and get a suit and just build on top of it, I was actually on a Hollywood auction online, and I almost won the Wing Commander suit. I was going to buy it for I think it was something like, $1,500 or something. Wow. And then we were going to augment it, and we had already designs overlaid on top of it, and I was trying to buy it. And in the last 5 minutes, I lost my internet connection at work. While I was supposed to be working, I was bidding, and I lost it. And it was for good reason, because Robert's design was so cool. The Wing Commander suit wouldn't have done it justice for us just to build on top of it. So we found these guys, and we just looked at different suit fabricators, and Blue Realm, they just came off of designing some really ambitious Halo suits, like Master Chief, for the Halo video game, and called them up. And Devin White and Adam Grumbo are now really good friends of mine. They're amazing artists, and their stuff just keeps getting better and better as well. So they designed and actually fabricated out the suit. And from there, we did a couple tests. And the next step was basically, all right, where do we actually shoot this? And what is the actual story of the Arbiter? So we had the suit fabricated and built before I actually laid the groundwork for what the final story would be. Wow. Because I wanted to know how good it was, because if the suit was lacking in any way, then I'd have to make a much shorter contained story. So maybe I couldn't, focus and really scrutinize and show that suit as much. We just built this thing. And from that point, I basically asked my dean over at De Anza College if he knew of any good producers that could connect with me. Because, up to that point, I was basically producing, writing, directing, and editing all of my stuff. So I knew for this, I could not do all this on my own. So he connected me with Vicky DeMay, who's now an amazing friend. We've worked on pretty much all my projects, include her. And she's basically my secret weapon and the key to, I would say, a lot of the success for a lot of the projects I've worked on, because I'll come up with the crazy ideas, but it was the first time ever in my career of doing this where I was able to actually just focus on the creative. And that's why with all of the crazy stuff, and you'll see in some of the behind the scenes clips that we released later, that it was the first time ever that I was able to step back from actually doing managerial stuff and any of the worries and problems of massive production, and just focus on, is this right with the actors? Is the story working here? Wow. And just focus on the creative. So that's, I think a lot of it was just freeing up from kind of the more logistical stuff.
That's actually one of the best things about working in a studio, in an animation studio, is that you don't have to worry about any anything except painting, or drawing, depending on your role. It's amazing how it frees you up to just, like you say, just focus on the story.
Yeah, and I think also I had to trust in a lot of other people. I really learned from the agency life was that I had to basically determine who my department leads were. And so this isn't just a bunch of people coming together to make a movie. I very deliberately structured it as an org chart, almost to like an agency in a way, because that's all I knew at the time. So when you have a crazy client project come in and you have to get it done in a week, there's departments that need to work together, and there's a channel of communication that works. So I would use things like Basecamp software online, which is, a $25 account every month. And I would use that to basically corral all of my department leads. And from there, I would trust them and instill in them, look, guys, you're responsible for this. And the only way that this is going to be amazing and be a success is if you step up to the plate and say, I'm going to own this. And also that you have the ability to own it and do what you want with that department. So I gave them a lot of leeway, and I wouldn't micromanage. They probably say I would, but but I trusted a lot of those folks, and they did amazing things. And I think that's what you see on screen is a testament to, I'm just pushing them in a certain direction, but they're taking it and they're really owning it.
Man, it's awesome. There's a word that was popular in the 80s in Kentucky, when and where I grew up. And that word is hustle. Now, I think most people, when they hear this word, they think con artist or something. But in the 80s in the South, it was more like hustle, 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 like an athletic thing, get out there on the field and push yourself beyond your mental limitations. And you just cannot pull off a film like Project Arbiter, something this audacious, this vast in scope, this beautiful, without a tremendous amount of hustle.
The hustle is actually a lot of things working together. My version of hustle is direct honesty.
Yeah.
And I guess it's something that's really helped me just through the years, because there's a lot of really talented people out there, and a lot of talented filmmakers, in the Bay Area and especially in Los Angeles. And, to really just connect with the right people, because that's the main thing is you can get a lot of bodies working on your project, but they might not necessarily be the right people for it. Thank God Ryan was the right composer. And we'll talk about that in a sec, but basically, it just comes down to, I think, finding the right people. And once you do that, then you don't have to hustle as much. As long as your department leads and the people who are working for them believe the vision that you have is something that it's not contrived. This is something that comes from your heart. And yes, it is something that could be commercially successful, but at the end of the day, it's something that really you live and breathe and you love. And that's why you come to work, and that's why you're an artist, and you create those things. You want to create something that is going to last longer than the time it took to make it.
I think something that Mike has that maybe relates to hustle is extreme optimism. And I think that was seriously, and I think that was a really driving force in what made this happen. Even when you're asking, like, how do you even get this off the ground? It's just this feeling like, well, we'll do it. I mean, we ran into all sorts of unforeseen things with, mixes were taking longer than we thought. And it was never, oh no, what are we going to do? It was just like, okay, well, this is it. So how are we going to do this? We're still going to get it done.
Right.
How are we going to do it?
Yeah, don't deactivate.
Yeah.
You have to stay activated. Yeah, that's great.
That's where I kind of found a kindred spirit in Ryan, is that, and through Vicky, who my producer, she worked on a feature film with Ryan called The Dead Sleep, which also got distribution. Clap, clap, clap. What was interesting working with Ryan is he also went through the meat grinder. Like, I went through the agency meat grinder, years and years and years of associate producing and producing projects where you kind of get a little numb to the fears and the clients yelling at you, and you just take a step back, and you don't hear the noise and the volume anymore. You just hear what is the actual concern. And that's the same on set. And with Ryan, he came from a pretty successful, music post house as well. And, just like our artist, Robert Simons, who came from Art Center Pasadena, you go through the grinder of learning your aesthetic, working at it, and then it's second nature. And then the next thing is basically communicating. How do you get to that next step?
Yeah, it's awesome. If I may share briefly the radical personal coincidence that is the project called Project Arbiter. I have been friends with Tim Coyne for years. We met through the LA podcasters meetups. Back in 2007, I think. Yeah. And I love his podcast. I've been a fan for a long time. I learned about it in meeting Tim, and I was like, man, what a dude. I love that dude. And, we became very fast friends, and he is the kind of the big bad in Project Arbiter. Yeah, well, he's a bit of a neutral gray too, because what's trippy is, you see the general in there, Heinrich, who's kind of overseeing everything at that compound. But then you have this other guy who's a little bit more mysterious, and you get a glimpse of him at the beginning, and you don't really know what he's up to until the end. Right. And, that's Tim Coyne. He plays Ernst von Reiner, who's basically the scientist who created the original Arbiter suit. And so the one that our character is wearing in the film, which we're, hopefully going to get into, a few years from now, is, in the feature film, is basically, he's the guy that created it, and the United States actually stole one of the suits. And so that's why when we actually get to the short film, it's not necessarily the actual feature film version. It's actually a couple years after where the origin story of the first feature film would be. Which a lot of people don't know yet, because we're not really talking too much about that yet. But I won't tell. But what's interesting, who else is listening? But what's interesting with Tim is, just a little side note for him, when we first did our casting, with our casting director Sherry in LA, we had an open casting call, and she brought this guy in, Tim Coyne, and he did Reiner, gave him a few points, and he did it. Yeah. Just, there's this one take, this one line that he had on the character, where there's just so much honesty coming out. It was one of those moments where I've maybe only seen it like once or twice, and I've never had that in an audition before, where it just came out and it connected and hit me so hard. So I got Vicky, my producer, sitting next to me, and I'm just like, all right, Tim, so when are you free? Yeah. And then Vicky's like, hey, don't do that so quick. And I'm like, no, trust me. Yeah. Because we still had to find out if he could do the German accent and all that kind does And he rewrite the history. Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. He just put in the work. I mean, that guy, he learned those lines, and he believed it. And so when you see his performance in the film, veins are popping out. He's flustered, and just that energy is just amazing. It's an amazing thing to see. Plus, that scene that we were shooting, we were really under the gun for time, because we were trying to do some more elaborate kind of moves around the desk and try and take some things in oneers. Going late into the evening that night, I think it also added to some of his character's frustration. Oh man, which it worked out so well in the end. So Tim, I mean, he is a fantastic actor. I mean, he is so good. And he is also, as you mentioned, honesty. He is one of the most honest people I've ever met in my life, and just love him in the project. And I learned about the project actually through him, because I think, Mike, he interviewed you briefly on his podcast, and maybe that's how I first heard about Project Arbiter. Yeah. Super short. It's like 15 minutes or something. So anyway, then I think about the following year, I get a random email from one Mr. Ryan Leach, and he's like, hey, I'm looking for animated shorts to score. And I was like, wow, I love this dude. He just, it's just like he reaches out, and he found a way to kind of, connect. And I don't know, it's just so efficient and so thoughtful. And he was so focused. And the fact that he wanted to score animated shorts, I love that. And I mean, somebody says cartoons, and I just, I'm their best friend. And anyway, and so I sent him my cell phone number. I was like, hey, give me a call and we'll talk through it. And, we became fast friends as well. So then maybe a year ago or 2 years ago when I don't even remember how I found out, but I was like, wait a second, you're scoring Project Arbiter? That's insane. And then I was like, do you know Tim? And you're like, well, I've seen him on the dailies or whatever. And it was just this insane coincidence that both of you guys ended up on this movie.
And I mean, working with Ryan was pretty amazing. I've worked with some pretty talented composers, but Ryan by far, he's such a professional, but at the same time, he makes it look so easy because, I would come in with all these crazy references and ideas, and I like a lot more kind of found sound stuff. It's not, simple looking in the library type of stuff. He really went above and beyond to find a unique voice for this, because we easily could have done stuff that's already been explored. So we're trying to build upon certain sounds and themes, and very much this kind of came out after, but very much like a looper in a way, where we just want those metallic kind of like drumming sounds and things like that are sprinkled all throughout. And you can't pick them out individually, but he did such a masterful job of actually layering those on. You just get that feeling. And I think one of the things we always came back to was like Mothman Prophecies. If you've ever seen that film, it's got an amazing score for like mystery. So we listened to that quite a bit, and I don't know, Ryan, what else did we talk about? I think it was a little bit of Terminator 2, but it was mainly kind of just this, deep, pounding kind of sound and driving force.
I think there was a Johnny Cash song you referenced at one point.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, there were chains.
Ain't No Grave.
Ain't No Grave. That's the one.
So even stuff that had nothing to do with what it was actually, eventually going to sound like, but just kind of pulling on these different, like, little moments, like just right there, that should go in the score,
Yeah, and I think what we pulled out of that, Ryan, was like the chains, right?
Right.
It was like the metallic kind of chains. Yeah, a lot of fun. But that's what Ryan brings to it. He's also an amazing artist as well, just in his own right for just creating music, not just theatrical kind of scores. The man can really play. So
yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah, this is something we geek out about all the time, actually, is kind of finding the parallels between visual art and music. And I think, actually, Ryan, it's something both of us had given much thought to in our lives previously, and then sort of, found, that we were kindred spirits in that.
Right. How to do the work, how to make it look easy.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all a ruse.
But that's an interesting thing you bring up, Chris, which is, kind of where does inspiration start a bit? And actually, with my stuff, it usually starts with music.
Oh, yeah, me too.
A lot of the stuff Ryan would write, I was working on the edit, but I would actually listen to his tracks, and it would help inform where I was taking the treatment for the feature film.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, because I mean, like, if you get the sound and the essence of something, if you're just playing that as like the noise in the room, you can kind of just go off of it and just find those other moments that you normally wouldn't.
Let's talk about this Looper thing a little bit. Nathan Johnson, the composer for Looper and the Brothers Bloom and Brick, Ryan Johnson's cousin, was actually on the ArtCast a couple years ago, and he talked about this sort of collage approach that he took to the Brothers Bloom soundtrack. And from what I can tell from reading interviews with you, Ryan, about Arbiter, I mean, there was at least some kind of similar approach, and then even I think Mike just hinted at it a little bit there. Can you talk a little bit about that, the sort of finding the sounds and how you sort of, I use this word in the notes here, assembly, how he sort of assembled the score. But then also, if you could talk a little bit about this very blurry line between sound effects and the score, because they're very integrated in Arbiter, as I could tell. So it creates this very immersive sound experience in listening to it. I listened to it with my best headphones.
I ended up doing a lot of sounds for the trailer, actually. So it's... yeah, there was a lot of similarity. I guess to the first part about kind of assembling a toolkit, I think I picked that up from Michael Levine, who is this awesome composer who I was very lucky to work for when I first came out to LA, and I learned just so much. And one of the things was creating your palette kind of at the outset. You're kind of building your tools, and in a way, I guess, like picking out your brushes and picking out your colors and everything, rather than sitting down and being like, okay, well, we can use everything. You know, you kind of force some constraints, like, okay, we're gonna only loop sounds from scratching the violin, and that's it. That's all we're allowed to use, or something like that. So in this case, it was a lot of finding sounds that were dirty, scratchy metal and real, tangible things. I think my favorite sound that we ended up using was this wooden cart being shoved that I used probably way too much as like a drum roll kind of thing, because it just had this like kind of sound to it, but it was just this massive, you know, I think like you said, you can't really tell what it is, but it just kind of, it worked like a drum roll without just pulling out a snare drum.
Wow. And did you actually record that? Did you go capture that yourself, or was that something that you've kind of found?
No, I did not have a big wooden cart.
Right.
So that was digging through a lot of libraries. Some of the sounds specifically recorded were a lot more scratches and hits on surfaces.
Cool.
Things that I could actually like find and pick up and touch. But no, I also just dug through my resources and found metal gates and bridges collapsing or just whatever, you know. I think I've mentioned in an interview before, I used the sound of the airplane to create this kind of musical pad, like ran it through a synthesizer, and it made this kind of massive just humming sound, and that just kind of added to the unique sound. And I think this is part of what Nathan is thinking too, is part of the reason is just that you have to have a unique identity. I mean, everybody's using the same software now. You know, it's all starting to sound the same. So if you want it to be different, you have to literally find something that nobody's using. And the way to do that is to record it yourself. But then the other side to that is then when you create this toolkit thing, then you're like, okay, these are the sounds we're allowed to use. So the whole score is going to be cohesive from beginning to end. This is our palette. It's all going to fit together. There's not going to be like this random electric bass coming in that just doesn't make sense with everything. You know, or whatever.
A wah-wah pedal.
A wah-wah that was, wait, what?
Try and work that in, if you can, please, to the feature.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Ryan. I don't know if I've ever asked you this, but did you find it difficult to actually find a balance between more like the ambient sounds? Because there's moments where it was almost kind of like Traffic, like the film Traffic, where it was just much more kind of droning sounds, and then bolstering those up and having more of like a rhythm and a driving pace. How do you usually find those?
I consider myself somewhat of a minimalist, so I guess that wasn't, you know, I could sit here and listen to a drone for hours, you know, and just kind of take it in and be like, wow, you know, I'm a big fan of Fish, and just they could go on for hours on the same song, and I'm like, this is amazing. So yeah, I guess ambience is cool because it's just, how do you get all these different slight little teeny textures that it's moving, it's breathing, it's organic, but it's not. Something I'm really interested in, I guess, parallel with design, is how do you translate like a wooden texture that looks so organic and is clearly not just designed to translate to music? How do you get that kind of randomness and tangibility, you know?
Those are things you're drawn to, but then applying them is a whole different thing.
Well, we were drawn to them because of the story. I mean, it was very much, like, you know, like I said, we used a lot of like metal and wood and things. It was because it was a real tangible thing. It wasn't, you know, the suit is not made out of stainless steel and it's all chrome and everything. It's actually kind of worn. And I think when we think of like 1940s technology, there's a roughness to it, you know. And even just the visual, just browns and greens and grays just kind of have this feel to them that, you know, I think even just that,
right,
just on that design kind of aspect, just kind of lends itself to this authentic, like organic sounds. But also the human element. I guess organic is a good word for kind of part of what we were going for.
Right.
Absolutely. I think a lot of it came from with the story kind of being so fantastical. You know, we're always trying to find ways to ground it. And I know, like, yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan too. So I watch a lot of behind the scenes, and the biggest buzzword is let's make it gritty. But do people really know what that means? Like,
right.
You know, I think the biggest thing we're just trying to do is just make it sound honest, because if it's honest, you know, because we could have went John Williams' huge symphonic on this thing, and
French
it would
horns.
have also been engrossing, but that's not the story. The story is we're trying to connect to this guy in the suit, so feeling the metal, feeling that kind of stuff. It makes the actual sound and the kind of the essence of the film, always the soul of the film is that music, and it's making us connect through that to that character. At least that's the hope. In the
I mean, that's a good point, that on the surface that wouldn't seem wrong necessarily. I mean, it would still fit kind of the epic scope of it all.
Wow.
Just the blaring trumpets and the big fanfare is just not who this guy is, just doesn't make sense. So
yeah, it's much more subdued, and there's nuances to it, like you said, and and again, I love films that have that too, and I think it also comes from it's a style choice too. It's like, what kind of film are you looking at? And like I said before, I'm really inspired by kind of like a lot of John Carpenter's films and Steven Spielberg and things like that. But it's, to me, it's just trying to also find a unique thing. And I know I said this to Ryan a couple times, but it's always like we wouldn't settle for just average. We would always try to find something that was really different and put a stamp on it, just so people get a real unique experience and it can actually stand out amongst the rest, like Ryan was saying.
Well, it certainly does.
I guess to the idea of kind of making it look easy, I think is answered by everything we're talking about, that all of this stuff was discussed beforehand, and before the actual literal scoring to picture, kind of sending off, getting notes thing was done, that there was a lot of discussion about, especially the opening cue was one that we went on with for quite a while. And I've talked about before how that was eventually actually done away from picture, that it was like, okay, well, let's just say, like, ignoring the score, what is the music for this supposed to sound like? The music that you would be hearing as you're writing the feature script or something, like, what is that just world? You close your eyes and you're in it. And it was once we found that, except for kind of nitty gritty, like, oh, let's like push the tension a little here, let's make him a little darker. Like, that's all easy stuff. I mean, after it was like, okay, this is the sound, these are the textures, these are kind of the sound design elements and everything, and the rest of it just kind of writes itself,
Sure it does, Ryan.
Yeah.
Just writes itself.
Like I said, this guy's a magician. He makes it sound easy, but that's the thing where he actually kind of spoiled me a bit, which is I would basically say this is what it's somewhat got to be like, and he would come back literally days later with a full track, and it sounded like, to me it sounded like it was already like pre-mixed and ready to go. And, it kind of spoiled me in a way where, I would give him some notes and I'm waiting the next day, like, all right, am I going to see it? And surely enough, I would. So, Ryan, again, that conditioning through, again, whether you go to school at a 4-year, whether you go to a post house or work at an agency or anything, as long as you learn your craft and you use everything around you, not necessarily like, even if it's not a film related job, if you're working at KB Toys, which I did for my first job, you learn something from it, use that, and apply it towards your work ethic, and everything else is shorthand, like Ryan's saying.
I worked in TV for a couple of years when I first came out here, and you had to be fast.
Right.
It wasn't like, oh, that's cool, you write quickly. It was like, well, if you don't write quickly, you're fine.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess, I'm grateful. I guess I take it for granted that I learned those chops, but I don't know. You have to.
That's what all the TV writers say. The ones that go into features and they're like, oh, wait, you guys don't all do this? What do you mean? Why don't you just make a decision?
Honestly, deep down, I always secretly hope I don't get a huge budget, which is kind of a weird thought, but I kind of like working for it. There's some kind of weird, like little, like, how you have like a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other. I think I got a guy in like a Puritan outfit sitting on my back, just whipping me, just saying, get to it, like, don't stop. Like, I don't know what it is or how my parents raised me, but I just can't settle. And if there is waste, then it makes me feel bad. Like, I just feel like that's a failure, so you got to use everything that you have. And, and put as much as you can on screen.
Yeah, Brad Bird, we use every part of the buffalo. I had a friend that was telling me about working on, I can't remember if it was Ratatouille or The Incredibles, but they were saying that they were in a meeting with him and they were working on a table that was going to go in this shot. The shot was going to be this table, and there was some stuff on the table, and the modeler had put the wood surface or whatever on the table, but they had just put it on the part that was going to be in the shot because Brad's coming in to see the shot, and we need to get it ready for him. And then he's like, oh great, let's final it. And they're like, well, we can't final it, we got to surface the rest of the table. And he's like, oh, I'm not going to move the camera, it's okay, just let's save that money and use it somewhere else. And he would talk about getting it all on the screen.
Well, a funny side note about Brad Bird. I mean, I grew up watching Iron Giant, and that was probably one of my favorite animations.
Oh yeah, me too.
But what was really trippy was, and it was kind of a big moment for me. I moved down to LA, and then I came back up just to visit my folks, and it was during the December when Mission Impossible 4 came out.
It's fantastic.
Ghost Protocol, right?
Yeah.
And it was amazing just seeing Tom Cruise doing this stuff on this building all by himself, is pretty insane. But the cool thing was, I've been following Brad Bird for a while and big fan of a lot of his work because he focuses on story, right. But he just makes it fun,
Oh, yeah.
And so I was walking in the line, and I'm there with my girlfriend Tracy, and we're just standing in line, and I'm like, Tracy, do you know who that is? And I knew him from the back of his head.
Yeah.
Because I studied all the behind the scenes and stuff, and we'd always watch that. And I'm like, do you know who that is? She's like, who? And I'm like, that's Brad Bird. And so this lady is giving him crap about his Fandango tickets. And he's got 7 Fandango tickets printed out. And he's got this Orson Welles style trench coat. But, I basically walked up to him, and I walked up to the lady that was taking his tickets. And I'm like, ma'am, you got to let him in here. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, he's the director of this movie. Why is he even paying? Awesome. And so after the film, Tracy's like, you got to say hi to him or something. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that kind of person. Right. And so went to the restroom, waited it was 15 minutes, came out. He's standing right out in the lobby.
Awesome.
With his whole family, and it was so cool. We sat probably about 4 rows behind him. He brought his entire family to the second weekend of it opening, and you could just see that guy was about his family and about just basically again quality. Yeah. And it was cool. Got to shake his hand and say hi to him, and then went on our ways.
I would find it very difficult to resist the the leg clutch, like a 3-year-old grabbing an adult's leg. How they cling on and you walk and they stay. I would just do that. That's how I would.
Yeah.
I want to jump back actually to a question just about how long production and post took, because there was this big spike of awareness of the project and then a long dark night of the soul where I didn't know if it was going to even happen or not. Had it vanished? And then of course, my friend Ryan tells me he's scoring it, and then my heart soared because I was like, oh, thank God. I wanted to see that so badly. Can you tell us what was happening there?
When you make a film, and if anybody takes notice, then you're running a company in a way. And sometimes you just don't have the budget to actually bankroll people working on it other than yourself. So, we had a fantastic media coordinator, Dave Betancourt. But, at a certain point, he's got other things to do as well. So a lot of the onus came back on me to do the social networking. Right. And I'm just trying to get this thing done. We basically, I came up with the idea, and I molded over for a bit in about 2008. And then I finally pulled the trigger on trying to find a concept artist in 2008. Found Robert in December. Basically designed it out, made the suit. Mid 2009, late 2009, basically started putting together the story. Originally was just going to do a concept short that was maybe about 2 to 6 minutes about this soldier that is basically getting chased by a tank, and the tree explodes, shrapnel hits his leg from the tree, and he's limping, and these Germans are coming up to him, and then pretty much all of them get taken out, and the tank explodes. And then the Arbiter's revealed, and we were just going to use it for that little thing at the end. And then, we basically had the suit, and then everybody around me is like, wait. You're only going to show the Arbiter once at the end? You're crazy. You need to do an entire piece.
Wow.
So, but it also kind of came from, all right, well, I've done this Narrow Road film. I've done The Reason, but I haven't really, done anything where I would say like, all right, this is my pro level effort, right? Those were ones where I was still really learning. And so I just said, all right, well, I'm going to create a concept short and a short film that I can take to festivals and also use as a calling card, but also allow everyone on the team to use it as a crazy calling card. My visual effects team, they get a lot out of it, I believe.
It looks amazing.
That also comes to finding a unified goal for everybody and just making it obvious. Like, yeah, we all have selfish desires that we want to make bigger films, but we can do it together if we, come together and try to make something of quality. So basically, that was about a year and a half of pre-production. We would actually have quite a few calls, use Basecamp to coordinate everybody online. And then we had about 2 large pre-production meetings. And at that point, we basically shot in the summer of 2010. And we shot for roughly about 8 days, a couple days on blue screen, a couple days San Martin on an airstrip, and a B-25 Mitchell, which we used as our XB-61 plane. And then we filmed, a few more days, about, I think it was like 4 days or so, at Hans Beerbaum's place called Cannon King Ranch, which is basically Cannon King with 2 Ks. So instead of the C for Canon, it's a K. And this guy, amazing. Found him through a gaffer friend of mine who does the Arbiter website as well, Hector Aranda, really talented. He does web design and he also gaffs, so he paints with light and pixels, but which is his slogan, which I love.
That's great.
But he connected me with Hans. There's another filmmaker that actually filmed with him, and I got to see some of his stuff, and it was a fantastic film, and it was much more grounded than ours. I mean, it was very true Russian and German sides of the war coming together in POWs, and it was an amazing film. And I saw his location. I'm like, wow, this is spectacular. I need to meet with him. And so I met with him and his wife Miriam, and became really good friends, and we talked about the film. And what was amazing is that myself, Vicky, and Jason, my cinematographer, we got to go up there probably about 4 or 5 times. And I became such good friends with Hans. He would let me direct some of his shoots. And he would have all these reenactors come in. We would film at his location and places around there in Petaluma, California, which is about 45 minutes north of San Francisco. And we would do these reenactment moments where he's using, I think it's legal style pyrotechnics. So it's not like accelerants. So it is legal. And he would just do these crazy explosions and, and just, it was like a candy land. I mean, this is stuff I wanted to do since I was a kid. He gave us the playground, and we would go off and shoot. And we kind of taught him a bit more about the Red One camera system and how to use high level pro cameras. And so we would test all this stuff out, and we found our look for Arbiter as well as our style for shooting actually during those tests. So that's why we were able to move so quickly on set and just basically do our 12-hour days and burn through quite a few pages.
You had practiced.
Yeah, quite a bit. And it's so helpful. And what's really interesting about this stuff too is, if you are doing a concept short, which even if it's a short film, it's practice for a feature film. So a lot of what we've done in the short has informed what we will do and do better in the feature, which is it's a lot of fun, and it's inspiring because you're always learning. And I kind of equate it to any of the great filmmakers out there. If looking at James Cameron, he made The Terminator. That's a great freshman effort. And then when you look at Terminator 2, that is like well refined. It's like night and day, I mean, at least quality wise. I mean, that's what's so cool about it. It's you're always learning and you're making it better.
Can you, I'm just curious about the Tudor style house, the great house you got to shoot around and inside of. Well, I assume you were in the real house, but I don't know if that's actually true.
Yeah. No, we really did. We retrofitted his entire basement into like a torture style experiment lab. And a lot of that stuff too, didn't put that stuff in there for shock value. I talked to Vicky, my producer, quite a bit at length about that, and there was budget concerns about if we could even do that whole basement scene because we were doing so much else. And so we just said you can't take that out because that's the core moment where he realizes what he's doing is it's not about the mission, it's actually about the people, and he gets a little infuriated by it, which causes him to do what he does in the subsequent scene. But he was amazing. He just gave us the ability to change his house. And one of the biggest changes here, you got to see this in the behind the scenes when we release it, is Tracy Hayes, the production designer, came in and built a faux wall, a fake wall in his bedroom to make the office. So he gave us his bedroom to actually retrofit into an office. So we painted that thing up with different paint all over the walls and brought all this stuff in and just changed his entire room for a week. While we were shooting outside, we were prepping the basement and the office. So he was just very, very gracious. And he's a humble guy, and he's got so many story ideas too. It's always great working with him and just talking about film.
And he slept in a tank.
Yeah, the tank. Yeah, he has. Well, that's the thing is when we were doing our tests, we put a lot of that stuff in the promo video, and so the tank you see at the end of the promo video is actually a Russian tank. So, we tried to be as authentic and accurate as possible, but that one was it was such a cool shot. We just could not help ourselves but put it in the little promo because we knew we were going to have a digital tank, and the choice came from. Number one, we couldn't get a Tiger tank, which is just so expensive to get a real German Tiger tank. And again, like I said, we couldn't use his tank because it was a Russian T-34. So what we decided to do was actually utilize a tank, which kind of goes in the pedigree of Arbiter, which is we always want to find the unseen things in World War II. So there's a big emphasis on, even in the short as well as the feature, to expose battles and elements of World War II, almost Forrest Gump style in a way, that you've never seen before, the unseen espionage stuff that really happened. So one of the crazy vehicles no one's ever really seen before is an elephant tank. And it had a Porsche chassis, and they made 80 of them or something, but they just turned up so much gas and everything.
Wow.
And they're basically a tank killer. And so that's why our Arbiter is going up against one of the most formidable ones, but its only weakness is, its Achilles heels is it doesn't have a turret. It can't rotate. So it's a fixed gun. So that's why when the XP-61 flies in, it just blasts it from the side and takes it out. Yeah, it was the XP-61 as well, the Black Widow. That's a prototype version of it, and it made it like a mobile command base inside, which they never really did, but we did for the purposes of our story. That's, again, a plane that most people don't know about. So we're always trying to just get people to talk about, all right, well, what else is out there that we haven't seen? But back to your point, I kind of skipped away from it. Post-production was supposed to take about 1.5 years. We knew it was going to be a lot. It took 2.5 years, pretty much, if you count all the adjustments to the final mix and things like that. We had the awesome, opportunity of going to Skywalker Sound.
Oh my!
Before they got bought by Disney, which was amazing. Wow. So got to go there and work with Steve Boddicker to do the 5.1 mix, and then we took his stuff and worked with a talented mixer, Keith, to basically adjust some of the mixing items before we finalized our 5.1. Yeah, it was quite a big effort. We originally had quite a few folks signed on to do the visual effects, and then some of it just fell through. Frankly, they just got too busy, and schedules just didn't line up anymore. Yeah. So we had to reach out to different avenues, and we found some folks over at Cogswell College that they do 3D. So they worked on the tank.
Wow, it looks great.
Yeah, James McCarthy worked on the plane. He's our 3D visual effects supervisor, and then a lot of the look dev for the cloaking, the Arbiter vision when you're in the helmet and things like that. That came from actually overseas and around the world. We had people in Poland, Germany, New York, just people we've never met before work on visual effects shots for us. And we picked the top people to finalize shots with us over the course of about 8 months. And they all came through FX PhD, which is an online visual effects school. So yeah, that was the big key there. Them and the folks from Cogswell, we were able to expedite post, but the big thing was we could have finished it earlier, but we just again said it doesn't look right yet. It's not ready. You got to make it great. So
how does one get their film mixed at Skywalker Sound? How does that happen?
Yeah, and again, if you've been listening to the whole thing and you haven't skipped through this podcast, you'll find out that, I worked for Mark Shepard it was my first film related job. It was my first editorial job working for him as an editor. We became really good friends, and he was my co-producer and executive producer on The Narrow Road. So I made that with him. He subsequently made Legacy Films and Entertainment. A lot of great stuff coming out of there. And what's cool is one of his friends and acquaintances was Steve. And, I talked to Steve very early on about The Narrow Road. And he came in and he was very gracious with his time. And this is a guy who started his career on Seven. His first film that he did sound design for was Seven. And before that, he was just working on Kawasaki keyboards in Los Gatos. And he told me his whole story of how he came up. And then, if you listen to any of Fincher's films, David Fincher's films, there's so much nuance with the sound, and he did a lot of it. So I respected his opinion. I got a lot of great stuff from him on, The Narrow Road, just for mixing. And he really taught me the scene that goes beyond your eyes and what you hear. And so I talked to him a bit about this, and then Mark brought it to him, and he saw it, and he flipped out over it, and he worked with us for the better part of a year.
You hinted at a feature, and yet it sounds like the feature would perhaps take place before the short, and yet the short, it opens with a bang, and then it twists, and then it ends with a cliffhanger. So I guess what was originally going to be one question is actually two. One is, what can you tell us about the this potential feature? And two would be, will we find out at any point in any medium what happens after the short?
Oh yeah. Actually, the questions that arise out of like the short film are actually built into the feature as well.
Okay, cool.
And there's think of the concept short is something that is a proof of concept. It's something that we look back to kind of as like a Bible in a way, but, we're not held by it in saying like, this is cement, we're still able to architect different things with the same characters and build similar moments. But there's a lot in the feature film that I'm extremely excited about, more than, I'm working on a lot of projects right now, but just some of the moments in Arbiter are things that people have never seen before. And that's things that get me really excited, is like bringing new imagery, but just bringing new characters and story to people. So in the feature film, I'm currently writing it with a talented scriptwriter, Aya Samba. We've been starting to work on that, and we've basically got everything mapped out, and we're just working over the next 3 to 4 months here to finish that up. And we have a few interested parties in different mediums, actually, that are pretty exciting, because there's a bit of a larger strategy than just one film, and it goes into other media. I don't want to talk too much about that just yet, but there is kind of like a transmedia plan for the characters that are involved in the story, and how they develop over the course of multiple films and other aspects. But the biggest question is, what do you do with this ability? And I also want to study in the feature film the proximity of war and what that does to people. Because you can, in this suit, it's amazing. You could be an observer, or you can be an active participant without people knowing. And a lot of films that use invisibility quite well, it's such an interesting thing, and you see them always being observers and watching things. And I just want folks to be more of like an active participant. So I'll just leave you with this. Imagine his adversary being a Nazi version of this, and there being core teams going against each other during historical battles. And then you've got moments like the best scenes in like a Bourne Identity film, but just imagine the folks being invisible in a room with everything breaking apart. So it's awesome. It's pretty trippy to wrap your mind around, but it's so cool because people haven't seen it yet.
It's the age of DIY, right? And most of my listeners, they have their own audacious ideas, and they dream about giving them life. And sure, we can encourage them, or attempt to encourage them, by saying, that you have to just start, you have to just be optimistic about it. But the fact is, they've all heard that a lot, and yet a lot of them still feel stuck. What would you guys say? What's some practical advice that you could provide for people in that place, kind of mentally and emotionally?
I don't have anything. What do you think, Ryan?
I don't know if this directly answers the question, but maybe. I study not just musicians, but writers and directors and artists and everything else. And I think the number one thing they all have in common is that they're prolific, that they've done tons of work. I mean, there's just so much Mozart music that nobody does, that nobody listens to. Even though he's on every concert every night all the time, there's just so much other stuff. And there's so much Beethoven that nobody bothers to listen to because there's so much other stuff. And I always say, the Beatles are famous for having 21 number one hits. But what about the thousands of other songs that are okay, or that are not so good or are fine or whatever? And it all just comes back to they write a lot and a lot and a lot. And not only does that just make you get better at it, but just some mornings you're going to sit down and write something kind of lame and trite, and then the next day you're going to sit down and write Hey Jude, but you can't get Hey Jude without 99 so-sos, So it seems, I know that's not a directly actively walking into Hollywood and saying hey, shake my hand, take my script, but thousands of, if you've written thousands of scripts, A, you're going to be fantastic just because you've written thousands of scripts, but B, 20% of them are going to be awesome and somebody's going to notice.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think also to build on that too, one of the things that I found just over the course of probably the last 5 years of my life is trusting in what you do. And, like Ryan said, you have to go through those, inevitable, hundreds of iterations of something to finally get to that gem. And I think people respect you more if you actually put in the work and literally the hours and hundreds and thousands of hours to actually just make something of quality, because they can easily in this day and age turn on a television and watch a lot of reality crap. I mean, there are some great stories out there, but a lot of it's just fabricated and, you're not seeing things of substance or value. So it's, I think people judge you on the final result. And to me, I would also think, Ryan does this as well, is, when we create things, yes, we want to do it as fast as possible. But at the same time, you got to make sure that it's going to be lasting, something that actually has a value that you can come back to it. And the thing I always kind of look at with my films is, that I kick myself with, is how do I create an aesthetic that is timeless? If I watch Battleship Potemkin or, The Thin Red Line or things like that, are there things in it that feel dated, or are they still relevant? And the further back you go with a film and you could still watch it and it's still relevant, On the Waterfront, and the story and the pacing and all that stuff, if it's still relevant, then you have something that is timeless. And to me, trying to hone your craft and trying to create something that is of quality and that is timeless, if you're trying to set your vision on that, then I think the other things are going to come. Because frankly, if you're setting yourself, towards creating quality, people are going to see that and they're going to want you to also collaborate with them and create quality with them. So,
yeah, and I think, Mike, you're also driving at something that we just briefly kind of glossed over at the beginning of this talk, which is honesty, and being radically, deeply honest in your own work. And it would be easy to ask, okay, great, but how do I make something timeless? And I think, just like you've said several times in this interview, that's where you have to start. It always has to come from that place of honesty. Am I right?
Well, yeah, I mean, well, in a way, we're all building films, unless it's a biopic, we're building films that are, myths or stories or, lies in a way. So the more substance and value and honesty that comes out of it, I think the more connection it's going to have to folks. Because, I mean, if you look at a painting and you look at another one that's a fake, I mean, you're going to be able to tell the difference in quality. So it's, just like, again, with any, digital artists out there and things like that, it's not the first. I mean, for some of them, maybe it's the first one there, but, the ones you come back to as great works of art, they're things that have been refined and they're years and years of experience. So that's why I feel like only at the age of 30, I'm just starting. I'm realizing, okay, this is a real sophomore effort,
Oh, yeah.
But I've still got several grades in postgraduate to go.
Yeah.
So.
I wish more art students understood that on a visceral level. I get this is one of the main things that I get, whether it's through email or Twitter, and they're just in this panic. And then I find out they're 22.
Right. I get a lot of emails from high school students and college students, and they're almost always asking about their career and not about their work.
Yeah, all the time.
And they have it backwards.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell them. I said, you're in music school to learn how to write great music. You should be listening to Miles Davis and going to concerts. You should not be printing business cards and, like diddling with your website. Like, that's not gonna make you fantastic.
But it's kind of tricky that way. I mean, life has lots of different avenues, and whether you go to a 4-year college, whether you just go to a JC and that's it, or whether you don't go to college at all, or you just create whatever you want. I mean, it's as long as you believe in what you're doing and you put in the effort and you're creating something of value, I think people will take notice, especially now in this day and age where you can put anything up on Vimeo and YouTube and you're going to get like an agent calling you if it's of quality. So it's not like, it's I wouldn't say that it's not tough, but at the same time, it's like you just got to understand that the doors are there's many more doors that you can open. It's just to get someone's attention, it's still just as difficult because there's plenty of people that know how to use those applications and can create cool looking things. But again, like I said at the very beginning, it comes back to how good is your script? How good is your story? Right. Those characters, and that stuff has to come from within. And things that inspire you, or else you're just going to turn something in that's not of you,
Yeah. So. Yeah. It's such an inspiration, Mike, that you didn't go to USC.
I got to tell you, though, I would have loved to have gone. It was actually a money thing. It was, my parents, I love my parents and they support me in, so much and they would give me anything if they could. But, we come from like a middle class kind of household. And so them like paying for college for me just wasn't an option. Sure. And then for me to also, take out the loans and stuff, I had that choice right after I made the reason and got out of, was at the end of working at an agency and going to a JC. Do I basically go off and make my project, or do I go to a 4-year? And then I imagined what it would be like transferring and going to a 4-year. And I was just like, I'm done with college. Like, I don't want to do it anymore. And so I took that money and I threw it into Arbiter and I just started assembling the team and I said, let's do it. And I respect a lot of filmmakers, like James Cameron, Quentin Tarantino, Stanley Kubrick, guys where they're just like, some of their films aren't necessarily the most popular, but it's still them. And to me, I would rather make a movie once every like 3 to 4 years, or even 5 years, and just make something that really says something than create something every year, every 2 years. That's just like, all right, here's his next one, So I don't know. To me, money and status is not the end goal. To me, creating something that's like classic, that I can look back and say, wow, that 57 Chevy is still sick. I don't know. I guess I have a more casual approach to career.
That's awesome.
But as long as you're with people you like and it's a good time, then there you go.
Well, and that's the thing. You're making films, and this is, I run into this with character design. I have people write me all the time, and I want to be a character designer. I want to be a character designer. And it's like, well, show me your characters. Well, I have this drawing of my cat. And it's like, wait, no. I'm talking about just design characters. There is literally nothing stopping you.
Yeah.
If you can't afford a pencil, go walk down the street long enough. You'll find one on the roadside. It's like
I think that's what's so funny about like a lot of our culture is people they want to be it, but they don't know what it is. Like, it's like once you get there, it's like, okay, you want status, then sure you got status, but do you have happiness? Like,
right.
Like get your priorities straight. And I think a lot of that comes from, our Western culture. If you look at like Europe and things like that, it's, they just relish over folks that are, over 50 that have gray hair and experience. And I think that's the coolest thing because it's like, those are people that have actually, they have something to say. Why don't we listen? And right now in the Western culture, we give all the credit to the consumer because we're creating all these inventive, different ways to talk to each other and be disparate and look at each other's Facebook pages, which is, it's cool to see what my family's doing up in Northern California. But at the same time, if I'm already seeing it on Facebook, why am I not traveling up there to go see them as much?
Right.
I don't know. It's kind of backwards to me.
Well, speaking of next things, before we go, tell us a little bit about Momentum.
Yeah, actually, kind of cool. It was right when I moved out to LA about a year and a half ago. My good friend Robert Simons, who designed the Arbiter suit, started hanging out with him out here and just became even better friends. And he started telling me about this project, and they had a director, attached to it, but he wasn't really taking it in the direction they wanted. So I kind of consider it my first film that I've been hired onto. It's just I didn't get paid for it, but but it's all good because I love the concept, which is it's basically set 30 years in the future, called Momentum, and it centers around a father who's an ex-fighter pilot, kind of like the Right Stuff style, and he was replaced by drone, kind of like AI, and the story centers around him kind of reeling back from that and the loss of his wife, and trying to reconnect with his daughter in this landscape of this brave kind of new America, which is riddled with economic crisis and more importantly, weather anomalies. So there's this new type of technology, which is called maglev. And it's created by this guy named Constantine, who comes from China, but he was born and raised here in the United States. And as an entrepreneur, he creates this UFC style race. Basically all the best in racing, Formula One, trophy truck, all that kind of stuff, pulling them together into an ultimate rally race that goes from San Francisco to New York in less than 12 hours. And so it's a high endurance race. And yeah, we followed this main character, the trials off the track with his daughter when she's getting into, and then also, his partner, Dustin, who is basically his racing partner. And kind of the rivalry that starts to create out of that. So it's pretty cool. We shot a concept short back in May of this year. It's kind of funny with Arbiter and Momentum. I somehow end up shooting just for only a week, but I always shoot on my birthday. So I turned 30 shooting this film, and it was the coolest birthday, actually being on set and sharing it with everybody. Yeah, we shot it, and we're just in post right now. We've probably got about another, I'd say, like 6 to 8 months. And we're doing both a concept short, which is like a 7-minute version, which plays kind of like like that girl with the dragon tattoo elongated trailer. So you get like a real nice kind of core section of the film. And so we shot full scenes and put those together. And then we're also doing a 3-minute trailer and also taking that to market. So that and plenty of others.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tell the good people where we can find you guys online.
Yeah, you can find me on michaelchance.com or projectarbiter.com. We've got a lot of activity on Facebook. We're taking it out to festivals right now. We just premiered at our world premiere over at Comic-Con, which was amazing. And
it looked amazing.
Just showed at LA Shorts Fest. And a few other festivals hoping to get into over the next half year here. And then Momentum, if you want to check that out, that's Momentum Rally. RALLY.com, and you'll see all the latest stuff coming out there as well.
Okay, and who are you on Instagram?
It's just Birding Ideas. That's kind of the banner that I go under, and then also on Facebook you can look up Burning Ideas. I got a page there, or just Michael Chance, Michael R. Chance.
How about you, Ryan?
Easiest place is RyanLeach.com, LEACH. And I tweet. I like Twitter. My handle is RWMLEACH.
You know what? I might have to get a Twitter account just to follow Ryan.
You should.
That's good stuff.
I don't tweet very often anymore, but
I need more tutorials, Ryan. I need more inversion tutorials.
I just did one about scoring for comedy.
So. Oh, I missed that.
I think I forgot to tweet about it.
Oh, that's why.
I also want to let everybody know, it's I know it's been a while to actually see this, but really hope you enjoy it. I hope the wait hasn't been too long for you. We try to share as much as we can and some new things, not just filler stuff and throwing it out there all the time. But really hope you guys enjoy it once you get to see it, and should be out here pretty soon. So thanks for waiting.
Yeah, well, it's a gorgeous film. It's just amazingly visceral and exciting, and a remarkable accomplishment, fellas. Beautiful score. Love it.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
So what did you think of the interview? Have Mike and Ryan inspired you? Are you working on a personal project? Tell me about it. If you're not, what's stopping you? I'm really trying to get an idea of how interested you are in podcast episodes and blog posts about DIY projects like Project Arbiter or any of the other projects that we've been writing about in our ongoing series called Will Your Personal Project Make Money? And as a quick side note, if you haven't read that series, go to chrisoatley.com/project money. There's no dash in there. It's just chrisoatley.com/project money. So yes, I really want to hear your feedback on this episode and the topic of DIY projects in general. So please go to chrisoatley.com/project-arbiter, ARBITER, and join the conversation in the comments. And while you're there, click on the link in that same post to download our free ebook called Creating Conflict: Rediscovering the Storyteller's Missed Opportunity. So again, chrisoatley.com/project-arbiter. On the next episode of the ArtCast, we will talk to concept artist Robert Simons about his work on Project Arbiter, as well as huge feature films like Ender's Game and The Amazing Spider-Man 2.